What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Disc Golf Nerd Plastic Podcast. In this episode, me and Andy got a chance to sit down and talk to Dixon Jowers. Dixon is a professional disc golfer. He is also the host of On the Box with Dixon Jowers, his own personal podcast. You can find that on all your favorite podcasting apps. You might be familiar with Dixon from his work with the Disc Golf Pro Tour last year and also his work with Dynamic Discs over the years. We get into a variety of different topics. We also have Dixon run through a bracket to decide a winner. That's all I'm going to say about that. You'll have to check it out for yourself in the episode. We had a great time talking to Dixon. Big thank you to him for being on the show. Without further ado, let's get into the interview with Dixon Jowers. All right, guys, we are here with Dixon Jowers. Dixon, thank you so much for being on the show, man. I appreciate it.
All right, my pleasure.
So, GBO just took place. You competed. What were your thoughts on the tournament overall?
Overall, it's fantastic. It's so much more than a tournament. The actual golf is almost secondary to most people, except for the winners for the most part. I mean, there's so much going on. A person could have come to the event and played in no less than 14 different sanctioned rounds and never have played the main event.
Yeah.
And actually it could have been more than that.
I love that idea. It's just a great idea to have all those casual events that all the spectators and just folks who want to be there and be around it can still get to play some golf. You know, that's one of the few things that Beaver State doesn't have for me is that I'm just itching to throw shots by the time I'm done watching the event.
Well, and in some of the events, they had some of these double disc flex starts that we've got a couple of different 9-hole courses in town where you'll go out and throw you'll have a group of 4, you'll throw your first drive, everybody will throw their first drive, and then you throw a second drive. And then you play both discs out and write down 2 different scores. So you play 9 holes, but write down 18 scores, and you've got a sanctioned round in like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of people that will play that as a warm-up before their actual round, because those were going during the days of the actual main event.
Oh, okay.
And hole number 2 at Hammond Park is directly across the street from the basket of hole 1 at the country club. So, it literally is just a warm-up, and then, since it's by the basket, you then have to walk 1,083 feet or whatever to get to the tee box. But, it's literally across the street.
I'm going to have to look for that on the coverage. I wonder if you can see it when you're watching.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you can. Yeah, if you see any shots of hole 1's basket where there's a road in the background, the trees on the other side of that road, that grass is Hammond Park, and that's hole 2 on the corner right there.
Oh, okay. That's awesome.
That's nifty.
That's very cool. So you mentioned there's a lot of other things going on than just the tournament. We don't really do the kind of tournament breakdown side of things, but with you being in town and playing in the event, I thought it only made sense to touch on it. What are some of your favorite things that are going on other than the event?
There's so much. Last year the Swedish Bonfire started about 5 years ago. But it was mainly just the Trilogy team members, DD Latitude and Westside, and then also Team Trilogy, which is kind of a fan, populated by fans. For that first year or so, it was pretty much just that, and it started to grow each year. DG Nomad started coming on and doing a glow golf, and also setting up a mini course. And because of it just growing each year, and then Radius, our local brewery, getting involved. Last year, they moved it out to the fairgrounds. And so this year, you had the giant bonfire going on. You've got the 9-hole or the mini golf going on, like the mini golf. And then you also have glow golf going on. And then you have the putting semifinals are going on. Plus, there's food trucks out there. Radius is out there serving beer. You got some guys singing the Swedish national anthem and the U.S. national anthem. And so it's just... As far as disc golf parties go, there's seriously probably, 500, 600, 700 people out there.
Wow.
So it's just in both years that it's been out there, the weather has been fantastic, and so it's just a really cool. There's just people throwing frisbees everywhere and drinking beer and relaxing. And by that point, that was Friday night. So there's 3 rounds in. All of the A-tier people are done. The national tour people, who's made the cut. So it's really getting down to the end. And even some of those, those biggest name guys are out there having a good time, even though they're going to be playing tomorrow. And then this particular year, we had to hurry and get done with our putting semifinals, me and my friends, because we had a 10 o'clock showing of Avengers Endgame to get to. So, there was just a lot of stuff going on. It was great.
That's epic. Have you seen any discs make their way into the bonfire itself accidentally?
I've seen discs make it in. I don't know if it was accidentally. People were just chucking discs in there. But yeah, a lot of people want to try to throw, helicopter shots over a top to their friend on the other side. But that thing is blazing. If you're within probably 100 feet of it, you can't stand there for very long or you start backing up. A couple of years ago when we started up, one of the RVs was parked too close and the wrap started to melt off of it. So it's definitely a hot fire. So there's only so much playing with it that you can do.
Right. Oh man, you should have kept the Jackson Pollock RV.
Yeah.
Well, it was Felberg's RV a couple of years ago when he had one. So I don't know what they ended up doing with it.
Wow, that's funny. What were the courses that you competed on for your division?
I played MP40. I was on the A tier side of things. So we played Jones West first. And then Boyce Baumgartner Memorial Course out in Cottonwood, which is about a 25-minute drive. And then we finished up at Peter Pan.
Okay. What is your favorite out of those tracks?
Out of those, I was and Doug Bjerkes, the TD, lives 5 houses down from me. And so as soon as they announced what our pool was playing, I've been talking to him that, like, come on, man, you got to give us something. Because all 3 of those courses are middle distance or short. None of them are long. There's only a couple of holes. What is that? 54 holes between those 3 courses. There's probably only 5 holes where somebody needs to throw a driver for distance. You'll throw it some other times for angle or speed, but so I wish we had some longer courses. But of those 3, Peter Pan is the one that everybody loves in town. When everybody comes to town, that's the one they want to play the most.
Yeah.
But usually I don't go play that one unless there's a tournament coming up, unless there's a reason to play it. Jones West is, half a mile from my house. I have to walk through Jones East to get to Jones West. It's right there. There's things I like about all of them. I played Jones West yesterday. They're all good courses.
Yeah.
None of them are bad. There's one hole at Cottonwood that I think's a dumb hole, but other than that, everything else is great. So, what is that? 53 out of 54 holes isn't too bad.
That's not bad. Are you sad that you don't get to play the country club and the new layout that they were working with?
I went and played it on Monday with Robert McCall, just because we had an event. Oh geez, when was that? September maybe, or even earlier than that, called the Country Club Classic, and that was the last time I played it, and that was before any of these changes took place. It was the one still from last year.
Okay.
I wanted to go out and play it just to see how it would play, but my arm was tired. That's a lot of full power throws that you have to do that, and really that's just not my game anymore. I like some long distance shots, but I don't like it was seriously probably 20 or 25 full power shots with high speed discs out there.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't really get into the tournament breakdowns and all that kind of stuff. We will leave that for you and your own show. But it suffices to say that the scoring out there was just unbelievable, and I was blown away by some of the scoring that was coming in. I was really surprised that the 11 down held on the first day, just because how we've seen things go this so far this season, and then some of the way that the upper guys were staying in place, even with over par rounds and stuff, was just really, really interesting to me.
Yeah, 13 over par made the cut, which is that's top 40%. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Only 13 people were under par at the end of the tournament.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
And only one FCO.
Yeah, compared to other events that we've seen. That's just mind-blowing scores. So yeah, overall, we could talk about GBO this whole time, but let's kick it into something else. Andy, you got?
So we're talking stats here right now. You're saying people under par. You're sort of known as the stats guy in the disc golf world, the person that works the numbers and tells the stories of the numbers. So I kind of want to know, one, what's your favorite stat in disc golf, and then beyond that, what kind of stats do you want to see in the future, and what kind of stories do you think those stats could tell?
Um, Favorite stat. I mean, I've been the more I've dug into this over the last couple of years, the more I've realized that putting isn't as big of a deal as we make it out to be. Um, there's obviously there's a level of putting that's necessary, um, but you don't have to be Ricky level of putting if you've got these other things buttoned down. I mean, Circle 1 in regulation and Circle 2 in regulation, each tournament, if you look at who did good in both of those, I can almost guarantee that they're going to be in the top 10, if not the top 5 of the tournament. It really boils down to that. And putting, especially Circle 2 putting, is almost never an indicator of somebody's good round. Because a lot of times those guys are putting from Circle 1 and running it because they're already upset about stuff. And they're just going for stuff. They don't really care what happens after that. As far as additional statistics, man, I would love for our greens to. We've got too many greens in disc golf where you've got a wide open, 40-footer on all sides. One of the things that I really loved about my course down in Houston, that was my home course for a while, was it was a 21-hole course, and just about every hole there was a really good 15-foot putt, and there was a really bad 15-foot putt. With trees on the green or drop-offs or OB or something like that. So I would really love it if our greens weren't so easy, because that's where, the idea of just throwing close and making a putt, that shouldn't get rewarded. As long as I land 30 feet on any side, I would really love people to start really having to manipulate their shots to land in a certain spot and not just in a general area. Because I think what that would then do is it would force people to start learning specific shots. Because, I mean, it's developing, but if you go back 10 years ago, you didn't have to have a forehand at all. You didn't even have to have a serviceable forehand. But now, I mean, Eagle is kind of breaking the game with these 400-foot spike forehands. I just don't understand how it's even possible.
I watch in amazement every time.
Yeah,
because I'm sitting here with a 260-foot forehand going, there's just
it
no
doesn't
way
make,
ever.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, he's
it doesn't make
defying the
any
laws
sense.
of physics. It doesn't make any sense. The amount of distance he's getting. The only thing I can really think of is he's throwing the DD3, which is a little bit more flippy than a lot of those top guys like to go with for distance, and that's helping him stretch out a little bit. But it's not like he couldn't still hit those distances with other plastics. So, yeah, it makes no sense how he's able to generate so much power. It's unbelievable.
The thing that I would like to see out of Eagle's forehand is, and actually me and Robert were talking about this the other day, is I won't go so far as to say just yet that Eagle has the best forehand in the game. I will say he's got the best hyzer forehand or the best spike forehand, but I haven't really seen him try to carve a line with his forehand or just to try to go outright distance on it. Now, maybe he can do both of those things with great utility. And if he can, then that's just really unfair instead of marginally unfair.
Right.
But I would really love to see him grab a flippy disc and just see what he can do with it. Just try to rip one. But going back to the point is, people are going to have to start learning multiple shots if the greens are getting tricky, because it's not going to be, if you've got a right to left wind and the right side of the basket is the only good place to land, but there's trees blocking it. Well, you're going to have to throw a forehand, and so that sort of stuff has to be getting developed. And I don't know if you guys how deep you want to get into all of that, but that's why I think that these arguments about who would win in their prime between Climo and Macbeth, it's not even close. Paul would stomp Climo if both of them were in their primes, because Climo didn't have to have the sort of game that you have to succeed right now.
Completely agree.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, you look at the same thing as, MJ and LeBron. Like, I bet you LeBron would probably stomp MJ just because of the skill level and everything that you have to have now to compete. Now, I think MJ is the greatest player in basketball history, but I still and I think Climo's probably the greatest player in disc golf history. That doesn't mean he's the best player in disc golf history.
Here's the player that I like to try to move around. Okay, so Kevin Durant, right? 7-footer, one of the best shooters in the game, excellent passer, good defender, has range. He dunks on people, and he's got range up to 6-7 feet behind the 3-point line. Take Kevin Durant out of right now and put him in 1993.
He's crushing.
Who on earth guards him? I mean, think about your 7-footers at that time. You know, what are you gonna, like David Robinson? Is he gonna be able to guard him all the way out?
The only way you're guarding him is going Lambeer on him. Like that. That's it.
Right. Yeah. I mean that's the whole game was different then. You had those guys hanging around. You know, the goons hanging around the basket. Bill Lambeer and you know Robert Parrish and those guys that were just going to punch you in the face if you came close to the basket. But I mean, there's just a development, and it's not insulting to say that. Because if you had taken Jordan out of 1993 and dropped him into 1971, he would have been jumping over people. Yeah. I mean, it's just a different level of athleticism, and it's the evolution of the game. The same way that when I started playing disc golf, I think the fastest disc out there was like an Eagle or something, you know, like an 8-speed or 9-speed. You know, but now we've got these crazy wide rim discs up to 14 speed or whatever, and I'm sure the manufacturers are going to figure out a way to make them even faster, you know, lighter plastics in the rim or something. But it's the growth of the game.
Absolutely.
And I love watching it.
And getting back to your original point, if there's more of a guarded green, then it also puts pressure on the upshot, which if you pay attention to coverage, there's so many of these par fours that these players are attacking, and they're getting so much distance off the tee, and then the green is wide open. They're basically turning these par fours after the tee shot into like 180-foot par threes. Just get up and down, and you tap it in for a birdie, and you move on. And it doesn't even matter if you go a little deep or left or right. You have a putt, no matter where you end up. You know, so I agree. If we had more of that defined landing areas and danger in and around the basket like that, other than just OB, I think that would be much more interesting. See who can be more versatile with their approach from straddle putts and different angles and little horseshoe putts and the things you got to do to navigate some of those obstacles.
Well, and if you think about it, whenever I'm coaching anybody or giving lessons, so picture the circle, right? 32 feet 9 inches. So what's that? 65 feet across if you're going on both sides. So if you back somebody up to 200 feet and say, I want you to throw a disc inside of this 65-foot wide circle, I mean, it puts a whole different level of comfort on you instead of thinking, I have to absolutely park this. You know, I've got to hit the pole. But if you think, man, if I can just land in that giant circle and then you practice circle's edge putts, I mean, it works backwards that this is just going to be easy if there's nothing that's going to stop me, you know, from landing it 25 feet on the right side with a hyzer and ending up 20 feet on the left side. I've still got a great putt. I've got nothing to worry about on my approach. We need to take some of that out of the game, and that I'm all for that.
Let's pivot because I don't have a good segue.
Pivot.
There we go. Yeah, see, perfect. There we go.
Pivot.
You just finished the tournament. You got the W. You're feeling good. You're tired. You're sweaty. You're hungry. What food are you going to get, or are you cooking for yourself, and what kind of beverage are you pairing with it?
Am I in Emporia or somewhere else? Am I traveling?
You are wherever you want to be.
I mean, after a round, or really any time, I love Chipotle. And if I can find a Chipotle, I will absolutely eat there. But we don't have one in Emporia. The closest one is in Topeka. It takes me 47 minutes to get there.
Do you add avocado?
No. I mean, it's okay. I don't hate people that do, but you know, I've got enough going on in there without having to pay extra for the guac. But I do generally do double chicken, so that costs extra. But I think it's worth it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, one of the things that I like to do, and one of the things I really enjoyed about being with the media of the Pro Tour last year, is going to all those cities. And I always ask the locals, what's somewhere I can eat here that I can't eat everywhere else? You know, trying to find something that's unique to that place. And I found some really fantastic stuff on the Pro Tour last year. You know, as a matter of fact, asking that question has led me to what I believe is the greatest thing I've ever eaten in my life, which is Franklin's Barbecue in Austin, Texas. I was in town for a tournament there, and was asking several different people this question while I was out on a practice round, and I kept getting these, you know, these descriptions that was almost like a religious experience of people talking about the food over at this place. And so I made sure I had enough time, and I went over there, and not one person lied to me. It was possibly the greatest thing I've ever stuck in my mouth.
Franklin's is so good. I'm personally partial to Style Switch, but I am not going to ever hate on Franklin's because, oh my God, it's incredible. Texas barbecue blows out North Carolina and Kansas City barbecue, and it's not close.
Oh, yes. When I first moved up here and I was in Kansas City and everybody talked about their barbecue, I thought, okay, there's going to be something similar. No, the best things that Kansas City have to offer are terrible compared to Franklin. I've been ruined to regular barbecue. I can't eat it anymore. So, I mean, that's not a good thing to be ruined to a great food. But, to quote, I don't remember if it was Beavis or Butthead, but I have seen the top of the mountain and it is good.
Man, that is quite the reference. I love it.
So what's the beverage you're pairing it with? Okay, so we narrowed it down to Franklin's barbecue. What's the beverage?
I mean, if it's Franklin's, then it's a Dr. Pepper. 95%, maybe even more than that, of what I drink is either milk, water, or Coke or Dr. Pepper.
Okay.
I have really, really tried to like beer. I've apparently had some of the world's best coffee. I've had a drink out of a $10,000 bottle of wine. None of that tastes good to me. And I've tried, and I've been around people that really want me to like it. And everybody says, well, you'll like it if you'll try this one. And I've tried it, and I don't like any of it. So water, milk, or Coke or Dr. Pepper.
My friends have played that game with my wife as well, where they've tried to get her to find some type of alcoholic beverage that she can enjoy. And it just never happens. There's just not a beer out there that she can get into. There's like one type of beer, Radler, where it's like mixed with grapefruit juice, kind of soda, and it's a very sweet thing. She can get into those a little bit, but that's really about it.
But see, when you have to add, when people are like, "Oh, well, try this coffee drink that's barely any coffee and a bunch of whipped cream and chocolate and sugar," and it's like, well, I mean, that's not coffee anymore. It's like coffee ice cream or something that's melted.
Right. That's
I'm
totally fair. That is definitely fair.
I love my coffee, and I like coffee. I like black coffee. Anything basically from Starbucks is off the table for me. It's just
straight
it's
up.
dessert. It's dessert.
Yeah.
So the church I worked at for a long time in Fort Worth, we would go down. We had a sister church in right next to Lake Atitlan in Guatemala, and this particular hotel we stayed at had all of these bungalows. And you would literally have to move coffee beans out of the way so that you could open the door. I mean, like, it was in the middle of the coffee plants. And they would be roasting coffee fresh every day. And the coffee that you would buy to take home with you would still be warm in the bag when they gave it to you because it had just recently been roasted. I mean, like, and people would literally dump out their suitcases, all of their clothes. They would have enough clothes for the flight back home so they could take back, 20 pounds of coffee or whatever they could fit in their suitcase. People were going crazy for this stuff. And it took all of the things that I disliked about coffee and turned them up to 11. And it was the worst. So, I mean, that's apparently some of the best. And to me, it was absolutely the worst. But I don't hate people that like coffee, enjoy you. There's people that don't like Coke and Dr. Pepper, but what are you going to do?
Fair enough. That's totally fair.
So you kind of mentioned asking locals about things, and you kind of answered sort of where I was going to go with my next question. So after traveling the U.S. with the Pro Tour in years past, and just being a disc golfer and going around and touring a little bit, what are your favorite stops on the tour for food, golf, entertainment?
Well, I mean, up until last year, I didn't really tour too much. I basically just played local events in Texas. Occasionally, I would make it up to Oklahoma. I mean, most of my disc golf career, I've lived in Texas until I moved up here. It'll be 4 or 5 years ago, coming this summer. And so, I mean, it wasn't until this last year that I really got out. In like 2004 or 5 or something, my parents were still living outside of on the northeast side of San Francisco. So I flew out there one time and went and played Masters Cup. I played Worlds in 03 in Kansas City and 04 in Des Moines. I went to USDGC in 08, 09, and 10. But outside of that, everything's been local. So I mean, it wasn't until last February that I finally saw Fountain Hills for the first time, which isn't a great disc golf course, but it is like a, I mean, it's a spot in disc golf. It's a well-known spot that you got to go to at some point. Last year was the first time I got to go to Maple Hill, which again is just a classic disc golf course.
That's that's the top of my list for sure. Places I want to go that I haven't been.
Yeah. I mean, if you gave me just a free plane ride right now and the time to do it, I would want to go to La Mirada, just because, I mean, it's the origin, it's the beginning of disc golf down there. So I'd like to go see several of those courses and just to experience. I got to go when I was still working for DD. This was probably 5 years ago. I got to. No, maybe less than that. 4 years ago, I got to go to Sweden with them for the Skellefteå Open, and on a layover in Stockholm on the way back, I scheduled my. I was getting to Stockholm at like 3 p.m, and I changed my flight out, and so it wouldn't leave until the next morning. And through many trials and tribulations, I ended up over at Järva. So that was a great thing, because I mean that course is threatening to get pulled right now. So to be able to go and experience what a lot of people think is the best course in the whole world was I mean it was a dangerous trip to get there. It was quite the travel time of just this one random American wandering around the slums of Sweden. Yeah. But I made my way out of the dangerous areas, and made it over to Järva, and it was all that I could have hoped that it was.
Wow, yeah, that would be a great place to check out. Do you know what the status is of that? If that's still in danger, or how that's going?
I mean, yeah, it's still in danger for whatever reason. The city of Stockholm feels like that area it would be better suited to be a cemetery. I mean, it is an enormous piece of land. I mean, there's 27 holes that go all over the place. Plus they've got some other stuff going on out there. So I mean, I don't know why they can't find some sort of compromise, to save parts of the course, or to, I don't know, not put a cemetery there. I'm not really sure why it has to be right there, but one of my friends, a DD team member, Victor Nihus, he works at Järva. So I mean, he is actively fighting against it, and he's trying to get the world of disc golf to get behind him. I think right now it's just kind of in limbo as they're deciding what to do. But it was absolutely amazing to be out there. The amount of work that they've put in and the quality of golf that it is just it's what every course designer and person that ever throws discs hopes to be. I mean, it is the top in my book.
Yeah, that would be a real shame if anything were to happen to that course. You'd think they would be able to at least like set aside a good 18 and then reallocate some of the land for something else, or yeah, there's got to be somewhere else that a cemetery could be. I can't think of. I mean, I don't mean to be rude to anybody, but I can't think of anything much less useful than a cemetery in this day and age. I just don't see the need for that. It just seems really wasteful to take away an amazing world-class sport facility that thousands of people a year can love and enjoy just for that. Just doesn't seem right.
I'll be supporting Järva by being cremated.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if there are cultural differences between the Swedes and us as far as after death. If there's some special honor with being with being buried in a special place, I'm not sure. But maybe. I mean, the reality is that disc golf, we don't have the sort of clout that we think we do. And while that might be a shimmering example of the best of disc golf within our world, to people outside of it, they just think it's a pretty park and there's hippies running around throwing frisbees. I mean, like there's just a disconnect between how we view ourselves and how the rest of the world views us.
That's true. It's hard to say. I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
All right, Dixon. I'm going to give you an option here.
Okay. What do you got?
I put together a bracket of 16 disc golfers.
I like brackets.
And I will give you the option of knowing the seeds or knowing the category in which you're picking. So you can so it's not based on skill, it's not based on player rating, It's based on some attribute of these players. So you can either know how they're ranked and guess what the category is, or you can know what the category is and not know how they're ranked.
And then I would have to guess how they're ranked?
Yeah, you can guess how they're ranked if you'd like.
Or
yeah.
you can just play out the bracket at that point.
Yeah, I need to know what the bracket is.
All right.
Well, no. Do it the other way. Tell me their rankings, and I'll see if I can guess.
All right. We'll start with the 1 seed and the 16 seed. The 1 seed is Drew Gibson. The 16 seed is Will Schustrick.
Wait,
Okay.
are we going to tell him how these seeds were determined?
No, because I think that gives it away. Okay. These seeds were determined by a third party, not Justin or I, that subjectively ranked them.
Okay.
So we'll have you pick, and then if you figure it out, we'll just you know what? Maybe we should start at towards the middle and work our way out. Now that
Can I get all 8 matchups to try to determine what the
that's even better idea.
Break it down.
All right. You got the 1 versus 16, Drew Gibson and Will Schustrick. You got the 2, Austin Turner versus the 15, Chris Dickerson. You've got Kevin Jones at number 3 taking on Jeremy Colling at 14. Simon Lizotte at the 4 seed taking on 13 seed Nico LaCastro. You've got Paul Macbeth at a 5 seed taking on the 12 seed of James Conrad. You've got Nate Sexton at 6 taking on Cale LaVisca at 11. And you've got Eric Oakley as a 7 taking on Dave Feldberg at a 10. You've got, oh my gosh, where's the
8, 9?
Yep, that's the one I'm missing. You've got Yuli as a 9 taking on 8 Barsby.
As a hint, I would like to state that I do not agree with with the seeding of this. Beyond a certain level, I think some of those are not correct. I think.
Okay. Drew as the 1. So that makes me think. Okay, so what stands out about Drew? So this doesn't have anything to do with disc golf skill, right?
Correct.
Okay. So I mean, the first thought would be, fashion, taste in fashion, how they dress. Okay. But Austin and KJ as the 2 and the 3 aren't really known as like snappy dressers, so that kind of throws that off.
That is true.
Unless this is where Justin disagrees with the seating.
I don't think you've ever seen him dress, but he's not a very snappy dresser.
Fashion is not my strong suit. I will definitely go on record by saying that. Should we tell him who seeded these?
Is this like social media presence?
No, but that's actually a really good guess based on these seeds.
That'd be another good bracket. Well, what do we know about people that often have a lot of followers on social media? What aspects of them do we see, particularly on Instagram?
Oh, is this like, well, no. Paul being the 5 there would kind of throw that. I thought maybe this is, how much they like to get around with folks. But
no, that is definitely not. I wouldn't. That is a little further down the line of things I would ask you about, Dixon.
Wait, I'm confused now. Is Dixon playing out the bracket, or is he trying to determine what the bracket is?
Right now,
I'm still trying to determine what the bracket is.
Yeah, how's he going to play it out if he doesn't know? So I guess
that was kind of the fun.
Okay, that's job 1.
Unless you want to,
we can give hints.
Yeah, we can give hints.
I'm going to need a hint.
Okay,
I'm drawing blanks
first
here.
hint. I think Nico is seated way too low. He should be way higher up on that list. That's definitely a hint.
Okay.
I would have Nico in my top few. Wait, did Barella make it onto the seed?
No.
He didn't make the list?
No.
Oh. Okay.
There's sort of another clue for you there.
Man, I am drawing blanks here. So, I mean, what are the things that stand out about Nico, right? His hair, his fashion sense or lack thereof, his emotion, his expressive nature on the course, shall we say?
He has a fiery character. That's true.
Yeah, but none of those really seem to fit the rest of this crowd because Yuli and Barsby and Kale and Sexton are all pretty calm dudes out there. Conrad also, so I don't know if that would work.
I would also say Kale should probably be seated higher, in my opinion.
I would agree with that. If I were putting this bracket, I would have Kale much higher.
So was this put together by a female, and this is the best looking disc golfers?
Yes,
nailed it.
He got it.
Okay.
Okay. So
How is Kale not number one?
Because Drew is number one.
And young Anthony Barella, who is really growing into himself, who looks like a tall, darker, long-haired Justin Bieber, is just a beautiful man. He's not even on the bracket. I don't understand what's going on with this.
He did. What I did is I took 21 disc golfers and handed my wife, or I guess I handed her phone and said, Google these names and rate them on a scale of 1 to 10 and purely based on attractiveness. She knows some of them, and so I had to take her because like Will and Drew stayed at my house for BSF last year.
Yes, and Drew being the number one seed raises a couple of questions for me, knowing that he stayed at your house last year.
So
yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with your wife here. I mean, Kale is drastically underrated.
I agree.
Philberg doesn't need to be anywhere near this list.
See, I think it's the beard, man. I think it's the beard.
I mean, I'm just saying he's not one of the 16 most beautiful men in disc golf. I'm nowhere near this list. I mean, that's not an insult to Philberg. It's just a reality here.
No, absolutely. This is the problem with this is that this woman married Andy Baywall.
Yeah, the bar is set pretty low.
How much does she really know? Because we could have my wife run this bracket as well, but she married me. So how qualified can she really be?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm not sure about your wife's choosing here.
Okay, well, let's run the bracket then. Now that you know what it is, we got first matchup.
Drew's going to win that one.
Okay, Drew.
Austin's going to win the second. KJ, I mean, that's a blowout there. KJ against Germ. I mean, it depends on what Nico you're talking about. Nico, when he like has the super short hair, is a much more normal looking human. When he's got crazy afro and he's wearing his Legend of Zelda shirt, it's really hard to say that.
Yeah, it's
he
more
would be
the objective, the physique.
That he's a traditionally good looking man.
Yeah.
So I will tell you that a lot of these were based on their DG Disc Golf World Tour black and white headshots, because that's like the first thing that comes up.
I mean, those were some good pictures.
Okay, what's the next matchup?
I would go with Simon in the 413. I got to give the nod to Paul in the 512. I'm not necessarily the lover of long hair, and I understand people's attraction to Conrad's hair, but I mean, Paul is he's a typically good looking man. Kale, quite obviously, there in the 611. No offense to Sexy.
I mean, he's got his
name
in his name.
His name is the sexiest thing about him. That's all he's got going for him.
Okay.
If his name was Nathan Johnston, he would be infinitely less sexy.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then Oakley, and then I got to give the nod to Yuli because that guy just cracks me up.
Yuli's got the quiet cool as well, which is an intangible that helps.
All right, so
are there any glaring omissions to this list in your opinion? Like I would have Rick on there somewhere, of course, but I'm a very well-known Rick fan. I think he's a handsome fella, and he's such a nice guy. But he didn't even make the bracket. I don't know.
I'm looking through the I'm looking through the top finishers there at GBO, seeing if any names are jumping out at me.
The glaring omission that I thought of after I did this was Nate Perkins.
I
just
Austin
got
Turner
to him.
was a late addition to the bracket who jumped straight into the number 2 seed. And
AJ's a good looking man. He's been dropping some weight lately.
That is very true.
Out.
AJ he's looking lean. Yeah, he's got the goofy thing that works.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going with just the kind of vibe that they put out, Melton has to be on there somewhere.
Okay, I can see that.
Not because he's necessarily a traditionally good-looking man, but he's got that confidence about him that I understand women find very sexy.
This was based solely on pictures, so
Okay.
hard to exude.
Yeah, because you and I bring more, like, we know who these people are a little bit more. So she was just going off of Google Images, which is not really the most reliable way to do it. I still
Well,
feel
and
like,
it's a
I
good
still
way
think
to
we
it's a
should
good
have
way to
seeded
find
it.
some images of some other random guy named Drew Gibson that you may not want to see all of.
It's very true.
That is
I actually
definitely
had to add disc golf to a few of them
to
because
narrow it down, or
it
PDGA
was
or
like
something.
we were
yeah.
getting like James Conrad had a bunch of other different James Conrads.
See, no offense to James, I wouldn't have even thought to put him in my 20 necessarily.
It's the hair. It's the hair.
man.
I mean, he's a handsome man. I just that he wouldn't have jumped out to me.
Although he is currently losing, we are in the finals of our hair bracket over on the box page.
Oh, I saw
and
that.
He made it to the finals, but he is losing to Paige Bjerkes right now in the finals.
Oh man,
How can Paige not win?
But it still goes till 9 a.m. Central tomorrow, so he's got some time.
he's still got some time to make it
that
up.
hair whip from Paige is just it's magic.
It is, yeah. The bounce, the volume.
All right, so
Where
second
are we?
round,
We done?
so we've got the 116 against the 8 and 9.
So
I'd
you
have
got-
to give Drew the nod over Yuli. That's the right matchup, right? I'm
Yep.
thinking back to March Madness about what the second round matchups look
I
like.
can give him to you.
You are really good at this without seeing the bracket. 'Cause
Yeah,
I have no idea
I'm
where we're at. He's got the
thoroughly impressed.
He's got the bracket.
I
written
legit
down.
thought you wrote this all down.
The 215 winner goes against the 710, so I would have to go Austin over Oakley.
KJ
The
versus
314.
Oh.
KJ loses to Kale there.
Oh, that's a tough matchup, though. That's a tough.
No,
matchup.
I don't think so.
You
I
don't
mean,
think
Kale
so?
is Kale. I mean, Kale's going to win this bracket. I'll just tell you right now. He is the most.
Wait, did Eagle not make the cut? The top 16.
Eagle
either?
did not make the cut. Too skinny.
Oh, see, I don't think most women agree with that at all.
And she even made a comment like he's got really good hair, but he's just too skinny.
Oh wow! But again, she
Oh,
married
but
you.
I mean that's hair from what 4 years ago. The World Tour picks. I mean that's
That is true.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah,
he
He
probably
does
wasn't
look-
even legal at
He
that
does
point.
look noticeably different now than he did back then. We're
Well,
finding all types of flaws in your methodology with this bracket.
I'm just glad he got rid of the blonde emo hair from last year.
that
Yes.
was terrible.
Yeah, I
I completely
agree.
agree.
I definitely agree there.
So Simon
Alright,
and
so-
P. McBee.
Paul, yeah,
Wow. Okay.
I'm a classic guy. Paul's got that what's his name, Don Draper look, kind of from Mad Men. You know, the little 5 o'clock shadow and the intense eyes, dark skin.
Yeah,
You know,
he
it-
has definitely got the little bit of darker edge to him. I think.
We have the same Final Four.
Okay, what is it?
So we got Drew versus Paul.
Ooh, that's tough. Huh. Paul wins every other thing, so I'm going to go Drew here.
Post.
Give Drew one win
I mean,
against
Paul wins all the
somewhere.
tournaments. He's got a great wife. I mean, like, you know, his whole life is going good right now. So yeah, he's done. He's done. And then yeah, Kale takes out Austin. I mean, that's like that's like the new kid on the block going against the grizzled veteran. I mean, sorry.
Okay.
And then yeah, absolutely, Kale takes out Drew.
So Kale's going all the way. I support that. I support Kale taking it down. But yeah, I definitely think Nico should be seated higher. Kale should have been seated way higher.
Do you want to be depressed
I-
a little bit? Outside,
Do I want to what?
You'd be a little depressed. Outside of Drew and Austin, no one got better than a 6
What?
Out of 10?
So
out of 10. So what I did is I had her go through the list of 21 disc golfers and rank them on a scale of 1 to 10, and then we broke ties as we went on.
Okay.
And so Drew was a 9, Austin was an 8, and then 7s were Simon, Paul, and Kevin Jones. And then it was a drop to 5 below that. So it was, she said she didn't like the Abe Lincoln face, whatever that meant.
you must have found the worst picture of Kale possible.
Yeah, what
Look at
happened?
it. Oh my
what
God.
happened?
There's a great black and white picture. I was like, that is an attractive man right there. I actually argued for Kale to be
Kale's
much
a
higher.
beautiful man. We got to arrange a meeting with Kale during Portland Open so she can see firsthand.
Right. How wrong she was.
Watch her go all.
just make up some T-shirts that says Kale is a beautiful man,
There you
and just
go.
leave it at that.
Oh, that's actually a really good idea.
That would be a great stamp too. Custom stamp. Kale is a beautiful man. He is. Inside and out.
He's a good.
I mean, it would be the most the highest selling custom stamped disc for women ever.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, sweet. Well, we ran the bracket. Kale is the champion in MPO. We figured that might be kind of fun, and you are kind of the informal king of brackets in disc golf. So we thought, why not come up with one for you to work through?
Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to when I can get to the point on our Facebook page where we can do a bracket of our brackets.
Oh, that would be amazing.
That's the meta that I'm going for here. It's
go.
like a vending machine that dispenses vending machines.
I love it. That's
so
fantastic.
literal.
So good.
Okay, sweet. Let's regroup for a second here. Do you have another topic you want to run into?
I had some. I mean, you kind of answered the question.
I feel like we'd be remiss not to talk to Dixon about the Pro Tour at least a little bit. Don't you think?
Probably.
It's kind of been beat to death. What do you think about that, Dixon?
I mean, I hope they're back on track. I mean, the Pro Tour failing or doing poorly is bad for all of disc golf.
Yes.
And every individual disc golfer that cares about disc golf should understand that. And every business associated with disc golf should understand that. Now, I'm not saying they need to open their wallets, but even some behind the scenes support would be wise for them.
Yeah.
If not outright opening your wallets. But there's a reason that even in the midst of almost all of this blowback, I have seen very little from the people that actually play these tournaments. Because they understand how important it is, and they understand what payouts looked like 3 years ago at A tiers versus what they look like now. I don't think it's a coincidence that the number of traveling pros has about tripled over the last few years, because it's starting to make sense where the tour can support more than just 10 people.
I also think we have a short memory and have forgotten just how, I guess I'm not sure the word, non-sequential the tour was just a few years ago, how much jumping around there was. I remember, what was the one year? It was like Beaver State and then Worlds in Georgia.
In Augusta.
It was like, a week between the two and all that kind of stuff before they actually ironed out how to figure all that out. And the Disc Golf Pro Tour being what it is and trying to work alongside the National Tour has improved that aspect alone just hugely. Do you think that there's been kind of a lack of support from the player base for the Pro Tour? Do you think they might have been able to curb some of the blowback a little bit if more of the players had spoken out about this?
Well, I mean, it's not like the Pro Tour was succeeding at things this year. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot to get behind.
True.
And what you would end up, I mean, Sarah was a vocal supporter when all of that was going on, and all she did was get destroyed for it. I mean, the people, the loudest mouths that were out there are not reasonable people. It's not like you can lay out for them the good case and that they're going to listen to it.
Right.
I mean, there are people that no matter what happens with the Pro Tour now, for the rest of history, they're going to say Steve Dodge is a disc, and that's it. They're not going to move on from that. They don't understand what all Steve is doing, what all he's going through as far as problems outside of his control, as well as problems that he himself caused. And I've talked to Steve a lot, and he is very much upfront with the mistakes that he's made. But there is, I mean, it goes across all things. It's not just the Disc Golf Pro Tour. When you fail publicly now, there is an entire population of people that are absolutely celebrating anybody's public failure. No matter what sort of hurt that does to that individual or to the thing that they're working on. It's the nature of the beast these days with social media, that it used to be. I mean, now everybody has a platform, no matter how ill-informed or vicious their words are. Everybody's got a platform to share.
Yeah. And a lot of those people that are the most vocally negative about things are the people who are frustrated about their own lot in life and kind of their own situation, and they're kind of projecting that out onto you. I can't tell you how many times I will get a negative comment from somebody who's telling me how or what to do, and then I go check out their channel and there's no videos. Like, they don't make anything, they don't create anything. They just want to tell you what to be doing and how you're doing everything so wrong. It's just, and I think like that's one of the problems with social media is it's opened the door for people to kind of take their own frustrations out on other people because there is that connection now. And it goes both ways because there's also the opportunity for people to support people in beautiful ways. And we just got to take the good with the bad. But it's frustrating how it's never the people that are out there working hard and hustling to do their own thing that seem to be the most vocal against stuff. You know what I mean? It's usually folks that just don't have a lot going on and are just trying to lash out to be heard and to kind of get some frustration out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mess. Now, a lot of that was self-inflicted. I mean, the Pro Tour has made several missteps, but hopefully, hopefully they were able to figure some things out. They were dealt kind of a hard way to go right there before Jonesboro with the in-house media team, and so hopefully, with a few weeks off to get that squared away before next week's San Francisco Open, and especially with that being such an epic course and having such a great tournament staff that they do out there, that hopefully they can get some of that stuff squared away, so that moving forward, the events are to the quality that we've come to expect. I mean, the reality is, if you went and asked your average disc golfer, okay, describe to me all of the problems that happened at the Memorial. 2 months ago, they would have been able to say those things, but now they can't really remember. So if the Pro Tour can get a couple of solid events under their belt, I think things will be just fine.
Yeah.
And really, after talking to Dodge a couple of weeks ago, the Pro Tour, as far as the media relationships go, they are in a better place than they were at the start of the year, which is almost hard to believe. But the contract or the deals that they now have with Jomez and Central Coast and Gatekeeper are better than the deals that were neglected at the beginning of the year, at least on the part of Jomez. So I mean, it's worked out well. Now we just need to get back to doing good work, or we as in disc golf as a whole.
Yeah.
But then specifically as the Pro Tour. I mean, I have no official relationship with the Pro Tour this year. So I mean, there's not a we there other than I got to know Steve. I knew him. I'd done a couple of interviews with him and had met him a few times before last year, but really got to know him well over last year. And I hope success for him personally because of what he's given up to do the Disc Golf Pro Tour. And those people that say that he's just doing all of this to make money, I mean, they literally have no clue.
Yeah.
Of what the financials are involved in this.
There are two types of people making money in disc golf, and their names are manufacturers and Paul Macbeth.
Yeah, he is not padding his bank account with the Disc Golf Pro Tour, and it's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen for people to suggest such a thing.
I think if anything, the finances were in a worse position than we know as fans and people outside of it, and maybe that kind of led to some of the mistakes that were made and some of the kind of desperation. Do you think there's any credence to that? Do you think it's possible that the Disc Golf Pro Tour was a little bit closer to the edge than we knew, and that was part of why they were trying to make these big changes?
Well, I mean, they came to the realization at the end of last year. I mean, they lost money on media last year, which because of how much money they were paying all of the Jomez and Central Coast and everybody, but mainly Jomez. So I mean, you can't run an organization of this side and lose money on one of the most important facets of your program, especially when there's opportunities to make money off of that stuff.
That's the biggest moneymaker in most other sports. That's where most of the income is coming from, is it not?
Yeah, television rights are a huge thing,
right?
So I mean, if you watched the Jonesboro coverage, there was two different kinds of commercials that you should have seen. There was the picture-in-picture sort of like half-screen commercials that were showing on one side while the players were putting out on the other side. Those were commercials that the Pro Tour sold to individual companies that Johnny V put in. Then
Right.
you also had the full-screen commercials. Those were procured by this company called Foxbat, which you probably saw the still images of Foxbat during the first two events.
Can I throw in that I thought it was kind of ironic that the disc golf picture they used was Nate Sexton, who specifically came out and said, like, hey, I'm not going to be playing as much of the
Yep.
Pro Tour this year.
Yeah.
The irony was not lost on me.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, for sure. Well, and so that's a third party procuring commercials from other companies on behalf of the Pro Tour, and the Pro Tour is making money off of those. And some of those were definitely disc golf commercials, but there were commercials for like the U.S. Army and the U.S. Navy and some other things. And depending on where you were in the country, different commercials showed up. So, I mean, that just opens a revenue stream that disc golf does not have access to right now. And that's a really smart way to go about doing things. And that opens up the ability for lots of interesting relationships that could happen in the future. Because you've got companies that are submitting commercials to this Foxbat company, and they have no idea where they're going to go. And so you might have some random insurance company that's like, holy crap, all of a sudden we had all of these disc golfers checking out our webpage. What is that all about? And so it might open up an avenue for a company to get involved that has no reason to get involved other than that they see a return on their investment on some commercial that they sold to Foxbat. I mean, like it opens things up, and there's work that's being done without having anybody having to do the actual legwork on the side of the Disc Golf Pro Tour. So that is a very astute shift that Steve and the Pro Tour have done, and I'm curious to see what that's going to do in the future.
Yeah. Have you had any talks with Steve or with Smashbox now that they've kind of reopened the door and brought Terry and Johnny back in? Have you been part of the discussion at all?
Not for Pro Tour. Terry and Johnny and I have talked about doing some other things.
Okay.
But not for Pro Tour at this point, because I mean they have the booth set up in that they're using with Nate and Val.
Right.
I'll be surprised if that lasts the whole year. Not because there's anything wrong with it, but just that's a lot of work for Nate and Val, who are just opening a restaurant. I mean, that's 8 hours of sitting in front of a computer and giving commentary for 3 or 4 days at a time. That's a lot of time to give away of your own company. But to when for Waco, when they sent Jeff Spring out there, I mean, they live in Bend, Oregon, which is like a 3-hour drive from the nearest airport. So, I mean, it is an absolutely full day of travel there and back for anybody to get there. So it's just not really reasonable to send somebody there every time. But at the same time, I imagine it's going to have to shift at some point. But to what, I don't know. Because, I mean, that was always an interesting part of last year, is figuring out where our booth was going to be each week. I mean, we were very rarely on site with where the tournament was. I mean, for SFO, we were in a public library that was a couple of miles away from the course, and just hoping that, people outside or people in the library weren't going to make so much noise, and that they didn't turn the internet off, and that they didn't lock the doors, forgetting that we were there till 7:00 or whatever.
Right.
I mean, it was always an interesting thing to figure out what was going to happen. So that being off site definitely solves some of those problems, as well as that's a lot less equipment to lug around everywhere. So I mean, it's interesting to see where it's going to go, but I think they have their feet under them for maybe the first time this year. So I'm excited for SFO.
Yeah, I really hope they can dial it in. It's been a very frustrating experience for me. I was involved with the tour last year, but just very slightly. I made a couple of short reviews that were played on the broadcast and stuff. So I'm about as minimally involved as I could have been. But for you, it must have been a pretty rough off season and a very strange start to the season. Are you hoping to be involved next year? Is that part of something you're planning or you're hoping for, or do you kind of write it off at this point?
I mean, that's tough for a couple of reasons. So, I mean, the way that I got involved with the Pro Tour was after their second year, going into last year, I just saw that they were on the up and up. I mean, like, good things were happening. You could see a massive increase in player participation from the first year to the second year. And I just really liked what they were doing. So I sent Dodge an email and just said, hey, if there's a way that you think that I could be involved, let's talk about it. I'm interested in being involved. I mean, that was literally how I got started. And he thought about it for a little bit and came back with the idea of doing these, like the pregame show, what became the Circle Zero show. and doing some other videos and whatnot. And he said, "Do you know how to edit video?" And I said, "No, but I feel like I could learn to do anything." So I mean, that was early January. So last January and the first part of February, I was making videos of random stuff, just trying to figure out the software so that I could reasonably have an expectation of producing something on the first day of the memorial. So I mean, that's what was going on there. And then when the booth didn't work out for Corey Morrill and Terry to do the commentary at SFO, I stepped in, and then it worked well between me and Terry. We had worked well before. We had done GBO in like 2016 or so. Right. So we definitely had some experience with each other. And so, we were able to click well there at SFO, and then for the remainder of the season. Now, in the interim time, I have taken on some more responsibilities at my real job. So I don't know if it would be possible for me to do what I did last year, just because of availability and the stuff that I need to do. I mean, a lot of my job is there's not a timeline on it. It just needs to be done by the time it needs to be done. And so if that works at midnight, then that's fine. But some of the new things that I have to do this year, that just started at the middle of January or so, have to be done at a specific time, and a lot of that is on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and that's generally tournament prep time. So I don't know if it would work the way that it did last year.
Okay.
So I mean, it's possible, but I mean, I still like what the Pro Tour's doing. I still think that it's an important thing for disc golf, and if I can help out with that in some way, I absolutely would.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's interesting because I had the opposite experience where you reached out to Steve. He actually reached out to me. He had heard, I think I lost my job, and Johnny V gave me a quick shout out on the show, just to like, hey, we're thinking about you kind of thing. And Steve had heard that. And for the folks that think Steve is just, in this for himself and his own money, and he's this greedy person, he heard that and reached out to me and was like, hey, is there a way we could bring you in? Maybe you can make some short reviews. And, he did. I made some minute and a half reviews that were played on the broadcast. He paid me for each one of those. He sent me some discs to use for the filming and everything. And it was just a really interesting, cool experience. So I've never had anything but good experiences in my own personal relationship with Steve. He actually was the first person when he was still back at Vibram who reached out to me to offer to send me discs to review for my channel as well. He was like, hey, I like what you've been doing, and he sent me the discs and like a signed letter and all this stuff. So it's extra frustrating for me when people talk about all these evil intentions that Steve has. It's just so ridiculous. It makes no sense for anybody who actually knows him.
I mean, it's the people that Steve is the devil, just they don't have any idea. But at the same time, just in case Steve is listening to this, I mean, I don't want to shine his trophy too much. I mean, he can be infuriating at times. Sure. On a personal level. He has such a dry sense of humor that there are many, many times when I have no idea if he's joking or not. And he does this a lot of times at completely inappropriate times. I'm freaking out about something, and we've got to get this done, and he's making a joke, I think, maybe, or he's not going to do what I think he needs to do, or whatever. I mean, whatever the case is, and then he'll just give this tiny, tiny little twinkle in his eye that lets me know he's joking. And it's like, Steve, seriously, okay, it's not the time right now, okay, bud. we gotta solve this problem. But he is juggling so many things at a time that there's part of the time when I'm like, this whole enterprise is going to fail spectacularly. And then there's other times when I'm like, if people had any idea all of the stuff that he's accomplishing right now, it's amazing, and it boggles the mind that he can get done what he gets done sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely, man. All right, any final thoughts for Dixon? You got any more questions for our guest? Thank you so much for being with us, Dixon. It's been really fun to talk to you, man.
Oh, my pleasure.
Is John L. still at Arkansas?
John who?
John L. Smith.
John L. Smith?
Wasn't he
the coach?
Yeah. He's still there?
I don't think so.
Okay, good, because I'm a Michigan State fan and I know that pain all too well. So hopefully you were able to get rid of.
I mean, you talking about the college baseball last year?
College football.
I mean, we've been losing for so long in football that that's. I mean, we got a new coach, Chad Morris. It was his first year last year from SMU. So I mean, hopefully we can get some wins. But I mean, college baseball was the kick in the pants last year. College World Series is a 3-game series. We made it to the finals. It's the top of the 9th inning, or maybe bottom of the 9th, whatever. They had 2 outs. We had the lead. Pop fly about 40 feet behind and to the side of first base. Just a typical pop foul. And if we catch the ball, we win the College World Series. First baseman was there, second baseman was there, right fielder was there, and it dropped right in between all 3 of them as they watched on. And then sure enough, on the next pitch, the guy hits a home run to send it to extra innings. They beat us in extra innings. They go on to win Game 3, and we lose the College World Series when literally a foul ball would have won it for us.
Wow. They was Oregon State, right?
Yeah. So that was rough, and then I'm a Saints fan also. So the last 2 years, our season has ended incredibly dirty. So I mean, and those are the Razorbacks and the Saints. Those are the teams I love the most. I mean, like where I'm sitting right now, I barely have to lean over to touch gear for either one of those on my desk. And those have been the biggest heartbreaking losses ever. Ever.
I feel that because being a Lions fan, I had to just pick another team to root for in the NFL, and I picked the Saints. And the whole reason I picked the Saints is my wife went to Purdue and was there during the Drew Brees era when Purdue was actually good at football, although they're coming back, but whatever. Her biggest regret in life is not hitting on him in math class. So
wait, hold on. Another Drew?
Oh no!
What does your wife have?
Drew Gibson,
for Drews.
Drew Brees.
Oh man, we're connecting the dots here in a disturbing way.
Man, this is wild.
This is coming.
I'm learning so much about myself and my wife.
I'm glad we were able to talk this through and get to the bottom of it.
Right, it's become a therapy session, really.
Yeah.
But those the last 2 years for the Saints, that was garbage. Well, and then especially last year. 2
years ago when that happened, when the Minnesota Miracle or whatever they're calling it, Doug Bjerkes was over at my house watching it, and he's a giant Vikings fan. And so I mean, but like he played it well. I mean, like you can't, if you're a Vikings fan, I mean, you can give a little fist bump, but you can't celebrate hardcore at that moment in the presence of a Saints fan. And so he very much understood my shock and loss at that moment, and he was very gracious, and we sat down and ate dinner and kind of commiserated. And then later on, he celebrated, but at the moment, he behaved very well. So that was tough doing that with a Vikings fan in the house.
Can't believe you even let him in.
Well, he hasn't been back since. So.
That was it. It's all over after that. All right, Dixon. Well, before we let you go, I'm sure most of the people listening to this have at least heard of your podcast or are one of your listeners. But give us the breakdown. What's the name? Where's the easiest way to find it?
It is On the Box with Dixon Jowers. I just posted episode 66 a few hours ago today.
Nice.
Even if you don't listen to the podcast, people should come over to our Facebook page. I want to brag just for a second about our people that are over there. We're able to discuss things without turning into an internet chat room. We've got a lot of really level-headed people that want to talk about even the controversial things in disc golf, Katrina's foot fault or her courtesy warning from this tournament or where her spot was or whatever the controversial topic of the week is. But we do it well. We disagree well. We do it respectably. But also we like to have a lot of fun about stuff. I mean, like I said, we're in the middle of the best hair of disc golf bracket right now. The podcast talks a lot about disc golf, but at the same time, it's the fourth segment of the podcast is always something not doing with disc golf. So we talk about movies a lot, or other sports, or food, or whatever. So generally speaking, there's something that everybody can come be a part of. So I invite everybody to, you don't have to spend the hour and a half or whatever listening to the podcast, but when you've got time, come over to the Facebook page and join our community over there of people that love disc golf and are trying to love other people at the same time.
I'll tell you that fourth on the box, I'm either vehemently agreeing with you or cursing your name. Like, there's never an in between for me. It always seems like, yeah, absolutely, that's the correct answer. Or what are you talking about? You're
fantastic.
so wrong.
That's what I want. That's what I want.
That's
so
the whole point.
I mean, the Bob section. So the fourth on the box for this week was looking at, because of Avengers Endgame, looking at the highest grossing movies of all times, and how the top 50 right now are almost completely garbage movies. Like, there's hardly any of them are good, because I think it was 37 of them have come out since 2010, just because movie tickets cost so much these days.
Right.
So, I mean, you've got 2 Fast and the Furious movies that are on the top 50 of all time.
That's terrible.
Come on.
No.
Actually, they're in the top 17. Furious 7 is the number 8 movie of all time, according to this list. I mean, come on.
Oh, that's awful.
Come on.
How?
Yeah. Yeah, I went through that whole top 50 list, and I only came up with 2 movies that I think are actually good movies. Toy Story 3 and The Dark Knight. That's it. That's all I got out of the top 50.
Wow.
And those are 2 good movies?
The new Jumanji movie is on here.
What?
I mean, come on, people.
Well,
but I mean,
everything The Rock touches turns to gold.
It made $962 million. So, I mean, it's up there on the list. Zootopia. I mean...
How many of them are Marvel? Like, you probably go over this, but how many of them are just the Marvel movies?
A ton. Number 4, number 6, number 7, number 9, number 10. Where are we at? Number 20.
Jeez.
Number 21. Number 24. I mean, there's a bunch of it. That franchise, like, hand over fist doesn't begin to describe it. I mean, they're almost like Scrooge McDuck levels of just diving into money.
Just ridiculous, yeah. Speaking of movies, now that we're on it, I actually had one quick question for you that pertains to movies, since I know you're a fan. What is a movie that you knew about your whole life, right? Something in popular culture that you knew of, but you just never got around to sitting down to watch it until you were an adult, and then you did, and you're like, man, where has this been? Why have I not been watching this my whole life? Does anything stand out for you?
Yeah, Godfather is that. I was probably in my late 20s before I ever saw Godfather.
Okay.
And then obviously Godfather 2. I mean, Godfather 3 we don't need to really talk about, but 1 and 2 definitely.
Can we just all agree that doesn't exist? We just wipe that from our collective memory.
Can we all also agree that 2 is better than 1?
That's tough.
This is a whole nother podcast.
It really
is. Another podcast. For me, it was the original, first Rocky. I had never sat down and watched Rocky all the way through until I was an adult. I was over 30 when that happened. That was in the last couple years, and I was
Rocky's fantastic.
What a great movie. And then
another one, Best Picture.
No Country for Old Men. I had never watched that movie until recently, and I sat down with some headphones on at night, all the lights off, and I just watched through that, and I was just captivated. Start to finish. That's just an amazing movie as well.
You want to hear mine?
That movie's in my top 5, and Javier Bardem's character there, Anton Chigurh, he's my number 1 villain of all time. I think that's the best bad guy I've ever seen.
Just incredible. What an incredible performance.
All three of those guys did. They should have all won Best Actor. It was incredible. They all did amazing. But yeah, I love the Coen brothers. And that movie was just, I mean, like I said, it's in my top 3. It's a fantastic movie.
Yeah. Andy, what's yours?
Short Circuit.
Wait, what? You never
Number
seen
5 is Alive.
Johnny 5, Alive. Yep,
Nice.
I had not seen that until I was in my late 20s.
Wow,
and
oh man,
it was like
I remember renting that on VHS from Blockbuster.
See?
Yeah, there you go. That was one of the ones that I'd seen on TV a million times growing up, so that doesn't count for me. It was just always on. My parents would put that on. But
you know what's funny is I had seen Short Circuit 2, but not the original.
Really?
I thought Short Circuit 2 was the original Short Circuit.
What a terrible world you were living in. It's a real shame.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you got to know Steve Guttenberg's full catalog.
Yeah, I mean,
there you go.
Is there anybody that's more important to the film industry than Steve Guttenberg? is or was.
Not from the mid to late 80s, for sure.
Ain't that the truth?
Fantastic. All right. Well, we will leave it at that with that profound statement by Andy Baywall. We will let you go. Dixon, thank you so much once again. Our viewers and listeners are going to go check out On the Box with Dixon Jowers. They're going to go check out the Facebook group. I'm on there. I'm part of the discussion as well. So we'll be over there.
So just argue everything he says.
Just arguing with everything I say. Just everything I say. Just try to figure out why I'm wrong and let me know, and we'll go on from there. Let us know if you agree with our bracket. Is Kale the number one guy in the MPO? I think that's a pretty fair choice. Dixon, any parting shots you'd like to throw out there before we let you go?
I don't know when you guys are going to put this out, but there's only a few hours left to vote on Paige Berkus versus James Conrad, best hair in disc golf.
Yeah, I think we'll probably miss that. I probably won't post the episode until early next week, so they'll just have to live with it. They'll just have to live with the result.
I've got some other brackets that I'm working on, so they can be a part of the next one.
I'm ready for the bracket of brackets. I'm ready.
There we go.
The brackets. All right, Dixon, thank you so much, man. You have a great night.
Hey, you guys too.
Awesome. Cheers. All right, guys. Well, there you have it. Dixon Jowers. He is the host of On the Box with Dixon Jowers podcast. You can find that on all podcasting apps. Go check it out. Also, make sure you go join the Facebook group. Dixon is 100% right. There's all kinds of great conversations and discussions that take place on there. And when these big things happen, that's one of the first places I go look to see who's out there, who's posting. We'll see some professional players and other people within the media, and different people within the disc golf community will pop in there and leave their 2 cents on a variety of different topics. Sometimes the actual person that is being discussed will show up and add their 2 cents into the conversation. So it's a really great place to connect with some people. Andy, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you guys very soon.
Cheers.
Cheers.